بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك من فضلك علما وتعليما اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing with Islam 101. And last week, we spoke about ahkam, rulings. And the most important thing that we touched upon last time was a particular type of ruling, which is the hukum aqli, the rational judgment, and its distinction from a hukum adi, a empirical judgment. And having an appreciation for the distinctions between different types of judgments is critical to properly understanding the religion, which is why we began with that as an introduction. So today, what we want to touch upon briefly is ma'rifatullah wal imanu billah, knowing Allah and having faith in Allah. And faith is a loose translation of iman, and we'll explain why that's the case in a little bit. But knowing Allah, obviously, is the foundation of the religion. And Muslim scholars historically went to great lengths to discuss this issue and to demonstrate the fact of Allah's existence and his attributes. And they did so, typically, the standard way that this was done was in the framework of the judgments that we spoke about, the rational judgments. What is necessary for Allah, meaning like a logical necessity for Allah? What is impossible or what is inconceivable for Allah? And what is conceivable or permissible for Allah, rationally speaking? And if you look in the Quran, Allah tells us who he is. Now, our minds are not capable of fully comprehending the reality of God, of Allah. But we can understand some things and know some things, particularly certain attributes. And Allah, in a number of places in the Quran, gives us something of a definition, a loose definition or illustration of who he is, So Allah, for lack of a better term, defines himself as khaliqu kulli shay wa rabbu kulli shay. But this notion of khaliqu kulli shay is repeated in the Quran. And what that means is the creator of everything. And rabbu kulli shay, it means the Lord of everything. This is who Allah is. And we don't get anything else There's nothing that can be said in human terms that can express the reality of Allah. Our minds cannot comprehend it, cannot fully comprehend it. So after understanding that Allah is the creator of everything, the Lord of everything, the way that we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presenting himself in the Quran, and really you can consider the Quran a instance of Allah introducing himself. And introduces is not the right term, the exact term I'm looking for, but Allah telling us about himself. And what we see is a focus on attributes, Because when it comes to knowing Allah, the thing that people get wrong and where people have misconceptions, fundamental misconceptions, are concerning the attributes and actions of Allah. The attributes and actions of Allah. So what we see in the Quran is a focus on attributes, the qualities of God. What is it that makes him divine? What is it that he does and can do? And particularly the attributes of qudra and ilm, omnipotence and omniscience, power and knowledge. And we're gonna come back to that. To take a step back and talk about how Muslim scholars, again, discuss who Allah is within the framework of the judgments we spoke about last week. We say that there's the necessary, the inconceivable, and the conceivable. The way that Muslim theologians define, quote unquote, because it's not a complete definition, but the way that they speak about who Allah is, they say that Allah is necessary existence. And by necessary, that's a reference to what? That's a reference to the rational judgment. In other words, there is an entity whose existence is logically necessary, all right? And this entity is outside, is external to the universe. External to the universe, all right? The one who made the universe, or the multiverse, if you prefer that. External to the universe, and this is something that is a logical necessity. This entity must exist. We don't know the nature of this entity because everything that we can think of, everything that we can imagine is within that closed circle of the creation, right? Our thoughts are created, right? So there's no way that we can, again, fully comprehend the reality and the true nature of this entity that is external to the universe and is the creator, the willful creator of the universe. But by the nature of the world itself, the nature of creation, we know that it is, again, a logical necessity that there be a creator. And this is who we are calling Allah. All right. And that's strictly from a rational standpoint. And the argument that they use, they say, what is the proof of Allah's existence? They say it is huduthul alam, the occurrence of the world. Occurrence of the world. So then they ask a follow-up question. What is the proof of the occurrence of the world? And the answer to that is حدوث الأعراض. حدوث الأعراض. The occurrence of properties. So for example, I'm going to use my phone again. This is my phone here. It is a gray phone. That's the color. Gray is a quality of the phone. It's a property, right? It's called an arab in the Arabic term. This color of the phone is subject to change, all right? It's inherent within the phone and it's subject to change. So that means that it's something that occurred, all right? It's something that occurred. Wa alaikum salam. So if the phone, inherent within the phone, is an occurrence, meaning its color, it means that the phone itself also must be an occurrence. It's occurred, meaning it came into existence after having been non-existent. All right? And that's because there's a codependent relationship. One entails the other. All right? You can't have an object without properties, and you can't have properties without an object that they are inherent within. All right. So because the properties of an object are occurrences, and we know that by what? Either the observation of change or the fact that those properties are subject to change. Even if we don't witness the change ourselves, we can imagine it. That makes objects occurrences. So if we go back to the original statement, the huduth of the alam, the occurrence of the world, the universe, meaning all of creation, everything besides Allah. Every single object in the universe has a beginning. It was brought into existence from nothing. And this is indicated in an ayah from the Quran. أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created from nothing, meaning by nothing, or are they the creators? Right, a rhetorical question that Allah asked in the Quran. Were they created out of nothing, or are they the creators? Right, and we know that both of those are false. We can't be created by nothing. Something cannot come from nothing by itself. And we know that we ourselves did not create anything. All right, we did not create ourselves, and ourselves did not come from nothing. No, they were brought into existence by something. أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Or are they the ones who created the heavens and the earth? Rather, they have no certainty. Right. So again, the second rhetorical question, are they the ones that created the heavens and the earth? The answer is no, meaning that just as we do not have the capacity to create ourselves, we also do not have the capacity to bring something out of nothing, to make something real. Right? That's what khalq is, creation, to bring something out of nothingness. We do not have the capacity to do that. So with those two rhetorical questions in the Quran, Allah is indicating to us that the argument that we just spoke of is a sound argument. And in fact, when you really reflect on it, and we aren't going to go into the details of it, but when you reflect on it, you understand that the premises that we stated lead to a certain conclusion, all right? That there is a necessary being, wajib al-wujud, and that is Allah, khaliqu kulli shay, the creator of everything. So after understanding that, there's just a few attributes that we want to look at. And I know we said that we would come back after mentioning power and knowledge. When we look at the Quran, there's a focus on those two, particularly in the form of the names of Allah, Al-Alim and Al-Qadir, the all-knowing and the all-powerful. Now, when we look at the discussion of Muslim scholars, they break down the attributes of God into a list of 7. And when they do that, the intention is not to say that God only has 7 attributes, but the point of having this list is that when we read the Quran, these things are mentioned in a decisive manner. They are decisively indicated by the text of the Quran. And also, they are decisively indicated by sound thinking, right? They are all logically necessary, as well as being decisively indicated in the text of the Quran. And typically they list these in what we can understand to be a logical sequence. So they start with power and will. Why? These are called sifata at-ta'thir, the 2 attributes whose effects we directly witness and experience, all right? Power and will. Power is what brings things into existence or takes them out of existence. Will is what specifies, right? So any number of possibilities, alternative possibilities, it's the will of Allah that determines, that specifies what is going to exist versus what is not going to exist. So right now I'm sitting down, I could be standing, I could be laying on the floor, I could be reclining, but I'm in a specific position at a specific time in a specific place, and all other types of specific things like a specific direction, all right? The temperature of the room is a specific temperature, et cetera, et cetera. So the specification of all of these things is the result of the function of will. All right, and that's something that, as we said, we directly experience. So there's power, there's will, and then knowledge. Knowledge. All right, because Allah knows everything that He wills to bring into existence with His power. Knowledge, will, power, will, knowledge, and life, because that's a condition, logically speaking, for the possession of the previous 3 attributes. All right, so life. And then Allah can see, He's seeing, and he has hearing, and He also has speech. Allah speaks. So the ulama, again, they compose this list of 7 attributes, because these are the attributes whose proofs, both scripturally and rationally, are decisive proofs. And that's what you see the discourse of the Quran focused around. And then making sure that the human being, when they think about Allah, when they look at the creation and observe everything within the creation, that he or she is not coming to incorrect conclusions about who Allah is based on fundamental misconceptions about the attributes of Allah. Right, so that's very important. This has been very much in a nutshell, but we're going to stop there and we'll actually do a part 2. Hopefully it will be in person. I know people are having Zoom fatigue, but we wanted to get those 7 attributes out there so that you can have them in your mind, as well as the basic argument that Muslim scholars use. And it's a, it's a sound argument, really an irrefutable argument for the existence of God. And, we can speak at length about each of those 7, but this is just introductory, so we'll leave it there. And we'll actually pick up on more details on those attributes because they relate to the next subject that we want to talk about next week, inshallah. Were there any questions or comments? You understand the basic arguments, what's the proof of God's existence, the occurrence of the world being objects and their properties. What's the proof of the occurrence of the world? It is the occurrence of properties. Okay, and what's the proof of the occurrence of properties? The witness, the observation of their change, or the fact that they are subject to change. All right. Now that's a simplified version, but that's it. Okay. So everybody understand that? Assalamu alaikum. So if everybody gets that argument and those 7 attributes, and again, those are not a comprehensive list, but it's something that is spoken of in the framework of decisive proof. But if you understand those 7, then you're good to go, inshallah. All right. And inshallah, we might have to do the next lesson on Zoom. I really don't want to, because people tend to not be present on Zoom, but we'll see. But in any case, next week, we're going to talk about the actions of Allah in particular in terms of what is possible for Allah or what is conceivable, one of those rational judgments. And we're going to relate that to the next great fundamental of Islam, which is prophethood. And in particular, the prophethood of our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what is the proof that he was truthful in his claim to prophethood. All right, so it's very important, inshallah. All right, and we'll cover that next time. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum.